And welcome everyone to Rock M Radio. This is the beginning of a brand new episode of Dive Cut, Season 8 already. And we are here to talk about your Missouri basketball Tigers as the only podcast strictly talking about Mizzou basketball. I am your host, Sam Snelling. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see me on your left. Please take a moment to hit the like button. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe. And we can help this channel grow a bit, get more Mizzou fans. With me as always, from the plains of Indiana, Matthew J. Harris. Matt, how are you?
I'm hunkered in the bunker and have on my most comfortable and most thermal
Coops.
and most beautiful hoodie, repping the truest of alma maters. I'm the truest of sons for the Hickman Cupies, but it's very cold here. We got 9 inches of snow, which is now like it's been so cold that we're now like in that weird zone where it's almost become like kind of like pseudo glacial. Like it looks very soft and inviting, but it's really like if you hit it, it's kind of hard and not fun. So we're supposed to get bone chillingly cold tonight. I think it's going to be the same in central Missouri. So we are hunkered down here in the bunker, and until we got on, I was watching Ole Miss trying to do something elusive, and that's win a road game in the SEC. They were up on Arkansas. So that's what I'm doing, hunkering and watching Ole Miss try and dig out a win at BWA.
We do have one final in the SEC for tonight. Alabama won by 20 at South Carolina. It seems as though life has caught up to the Gamecocks pretty quickly. They were only 11.5-point dogs. That's the second time that they've been significant dogs and not covered.
As I would like to continually say to Lamont Paris, the word of the year for you is regression.
Yeah. Regression. I would also like. I would try to encourage them to do as much margin control as they can. Yeah, we've got a couple minutes left in the Ole Miss Arkansas game, and Ole Miss is up 6. I'm not really convinced either team has looked all that good. Slow pace to that one. It's been rather interesting. I did watch the last 5 minutes of what was mostly just video reviews of the Villanova and UConn game. Villanova pulled off the upset at home, held off the Huskies by a point. It's UConn's first loss in a while. I want to say since Maui.
Yeah. Kyle Neptune's fighting, man. Kyle Neptune's fighting.
Like I always say, man, winning is hard. And when the times are good, I think it's important to appreciate them because they can become not as good very quickly.
We have been very humbled in this fan base by that mentality.
Yes. Maybe more than we would like. But yeah, so this is a Missouri basketball podcast, so we could talk about the Tigers. You and I spoke last week. We were getting ready for SEC basketball. The record is pretty much what we expected it would be, or what we hoped it. Well, I mean, I guess you always kind of hope they win every game. But there was an expectation of them being 1-1 at this point. They are 1-1. They went on the road. They did not play great against Auburn. Auburn shot the ball. Weirdly enough, Matt, I did look this up. I put it in our Slack chat. I don't know if you saw it. That was Auburn's best 3-point shooting performance of the season. So, of course, it comes against the Tigers. Auburn hit 47% of their threes. I'm surprised, as well as they kind of shoot as a team, that's the first time that they've been that high. I thought they'd probably have a 50% shooting night here or there. But yeah, so 16-point loss to Auburn. It was a performance where the Tigers were the only SEC team to cover the point spread. It was kind of a backdoor cover. Like they kind of had a little bit of a charge late. They got it down to 14, and and then a walk on hit a little baseline jumper to set the final margin. I did sort of enjoy Marcus Allen, picking the walk-on's pocket like it was like a easy day at the park.
Just like all the time.
Yeah, like this
beat
dude.
To the horn.
I'm just gonna take your cookies and go the other way. But yeah, 60-point loss, turn around. Had some travel issues because of the weather, and then won at home by 16. So net a 0 for 2 SEC games. It is what it is.
Yeah, I thought the Auburn game really came down to, there was that sort of, some people might say in the middle of the first half when Auburn got separation and, Missouri really couldn't get traction offensively. I thought coming out of the locker room in the second half, and I wrote this when I did lineup review, I really thought there was all of these margins are incredibly thin and incredibly fragile when you go on the road anywhere in this league, and especially against Auburn. But they'd cut the lead to 12. And when they came out in the second half, they got a really good post-up look for Marcus Allen that he didn't convert. That would have gotten it down to 10. They get a good stop on Broom in the post-up. They do a good job walling up. They get a rebound. They push. They get good guys running the channels. Warwick gets an open 3 from the wing. That drops. It's a 7-point game. And again, I hate kind of counterfactuals or hypotheticals, routinely, but I think that's a perfect example of the sliding doors that happen in these types of games. If Mizzou gets that to 7 and there's some game pressure there and they've settled in, they've kind of taken that punch, Auburn's going to go on a run. They kind of went on a slow motion run in the middle of the first half. They're going to get the lead out. Can you get that back under 10? Can you get it to 2-3 possessions? And can you just start working it? And can you just start to get your toehold back? And then the inverse happens. Off the Warwick miss, there's a secondary possession that doesn't go well. Leads to a run out that Auburn converts. There's a Missouri flagrant 1 foul on the other end. That's a 4-point possession. That flips. Missouri gets a pretty good lineup on the floor that goes, I think, 1 for 5 in its possessions. And Auburn hits, to your point about shooting luck, 2 just ridiculous step back threes from Chad Baker, Mazzara, and Denver Jones. And now the margin's out to 18 again. And, within 5 minutes. And so you go from like that very, very real possibility in the first minute of getting the lead down to 7 to within 4 minutes, you're down 18 and the ball game's effectively over. And that's life on the road. And that's life when you go to play Auburn. You have to be able to execute when those moments came up. Missouri just didn't do it. We'll joke about margin control, but that matters, in this league. And in, you talk about South Carolina not taking a 20 burger at home. You can't do that. You just can't get, you talk about LSU. LSU's going to feel awful. They were on like 5 or 6 point dogs on the road. They got absolutely, they were
I think the line ended up at 7 or 7.5 as what, at least what I had in like the final line that I saw.
And like LSU's going to feel awful that that's 16, but it could have been way worse if they don't go on an 8-0 run late. So we talk about all this stuff. It matters because, what do we say? What have we said when Missouri has been in the mix for tournament bids and people have griped about seeding? In the eyes of analytic models, every possession counts. Every possession matters. They go into what, how those models evaluate your performance or what sort of objective metrics they put out. The models, aside from maybe Haslam, aren't going to care that the final 11 minutes were effectively over and it was garbage time. Missouri got that to a workable margin. So that's important. That's going to sound like a Pyrrhic victory to some folks, but not getting blown out by 30 is a win in that sort of situation, because there are going to be some teams that are going to go into Neville and get absolutely firebombed. And if you are not one of them, those possessions, even if it's a 16-point loss, those possessions for you are still more valuable than what they are for somebody else. So I think that's important in relative terms to keep in mind. So we can get into the nuances of it if you want, but I just felt like there was a narrow 2-minute window coming out of the locker room where they could have chopped it to 2 or 3 possessions. Didn't happen. Auburn did what fantastic teams do. They put a foot on the throat and finished. And kudos to Missouri for trying to save some face there, but that's what happens when you don't take opportunities against good basketball teams.
Yeah, I'm gonna also and this is part of going on the road. There was some really, really poor officiating, and some calls as I was kind of going back through like the rewatch, where like things that were really, really key to helping Auburn kind of expand the lead. The one that stands out to me was Chad Baker-Mazara's 4-point play. He landed. Mark Mitchell put his hand on his hip, and that was it. CBM basically fell over from that contact. The ref called it.
My counterpoint was they got leverage. It was a shitty closeout too. And when you
it was, but there was so little contact there that the only reason the official calls it is because, and this is what I was basically saying to you guys last night in the chat. And I think this stems from their head coach. And one of the reasons why I don't like Auburn, and I have a hard time being I recognize they're a good team and all that. It's a team full of bitches. And as if you played basketball, you know what I'm talking about, because all they do is bitch. Like the whole Marcus Allen, Janai Broom thing, that was Broom basically just bitching. That's how he got the call. Staring at the ref. And then you know what? That same behavior on the road for him earned him a technical against Texas last night. And so this is my frustration, where I get officials are human beings and they are susceptible to the home environment and the crowd and all that kind of stuff. But that's kind of Bush League stuff, man. You can't let, even if he's an All-American, you can't let a guy dictate you calling a foul because the other guy's trying to defend him.
Guess which home court has the best advantage in terms of foul calls in the SEC? It ain't Auburn. I'll tell you that. You'll be surprised.
I don't know.
Oklahoma.
Really?
Oklahoma is 1, Mississippi State 2, Alabama 3, Texas 4, Tennessee 5, Arkansas 6, Auburn at 7. Missouri way down there around 11. So,
I would think again, being just a person, I would get so tired of Pearl just constantly yelling at me. And look, I know every coach works the refs. I sat on the bench with Jay Blossom, who is notorious
Jay
for
Blossom work refs on Saturday.
He works the refs. So I understand that as if I were an official, I would get so tired of that. So I would be a lot less willing to give them calls because, I would rather hear them complaining to me about things that I missed than giving in and calling things that that I felt would just shut them up. I just wanted to say that, get some things off my chest. It bothers me when you're not allowed to simply play defense, and the officials have to step in and prevent, an All-American. He's an All-American. He can handle a little contact. I mean, God forbid Caden Shedrick touched him on his head. It looked like an accident, and he yelled at the ref enough last night to get a technical, which I chuckled at. Let's talk about LSU.
It's always I found that game more frustrating than the Auburn game.
Because Auburn. I
wanted blood. The Slack thread can attest to I wanted blood from that game.
Auburn, prior to the last 5 or 6 minutes at Texas, they were looking like they were going to beat Texas at Texas by about 18 to 20 points. And that would have put them kind of continued on their historic pace that they were on before. Now they are behind Duke because Duke opened a can on Pitt at home.
It sent Pitt into the pit of despair last night.
Yeah,
Jesus.
and you know,
You get
Pitt
down
at
there.
least per the analytics is supposed to be pretty good, and they lost by like 30. So so Duke is now number one in at least Gimpom. Auburn is number two, but it did really feel like Missouri had the opportunity with LSU to
Open its
expand
own
that.
can.
I think the lead never got past 21, right? Did it get 22?
It got to 22, I think. 21 or 22. I can check.
Yeah,
that.
I think it was 55-33 at one point was the biggest lead.
21 was the largest lead, actually. 80 to 59 was the largest lead.
That might have been like something weird.
There was a score bug error. It was 53. Instead of 55.
Okay, so that's what it was. I'm gonna say because watching the game, I'm like, wow, I thought they only got to 21, and here they are 22. It did really feel like that should have been a wider margin. You kind of pointed it out on the forums, and I agree that they had a couple brain farty lineups, and
some clunkers,
some kind of some giveaways, particularly late. It did kind of look like when Warwick hit that three to sort of push the lead back up to 21. What was that with like 3.5 minutes to go or something like that?
3:30 to go.
It looked like Missouri was just like, well, we're done. Like we got this, and they just kind of stopped playing because like there are like moments in the next few possessions you're like, you guys, like there's still 3 minutes to go. Like, let's at least attempt some defense. Because really, like for most of the game, I thought the defense was terrific.
Yeah. I think that was what was frustrating is you felt like if you looked at it, there was a running math I had going. They blew 2 turnover opportunities in the first 4 minutes by turning the ball over off a live ball turnover, which is just especially frustrating because it's like you did the work, you got the ball, and then you gave it right back. So that should have been 4. They didn't shoot free throws very well in the first half. They probably should have had 2 more free throws that went down. So that's probably 6. So they should have probably had 6 more points in the first half there. If they stay out of the lineup with Josh Gray and Marcus Allen as the front court, that gave up a 7-0 run midway through the second half, which, made things start to feel a little bit wobbly. If they'd stayed out of that lineup, that's 7 more points they get back. So now we're at 13. And if they had been engaged late and not given up the 8-0 run, which was a weird lineup, it was 4 like all their combo guards and point guards together.
Yeah.
And then Mark Mitchell, which was a weird lineup.
I think that was like they had that little snafu on the sideline.
Right.
Where Bates kind of got trapped, and then I think what he did right after
they brought in all hands.
Out of that, they called a timeout, and then they just said, you know what, all ball handlers are going in, and that lineup, like I think, just had a lot of guys who were just out of position defensively.
Yeah, it got behind the 8 ball. There were some flybys and stuff, so that gave up an 8-0 run. So we're looking at 21 points there, even if you give the 7-0 run to them, but they do the job late, we're looking at a margin that should have probably been closer to 30. Last night, if you look at the actual defensive metrics, if you look at the way Missouri's half-court offense had been working, that thing should have been probably 90 to 60 should have been the final score of that ball game. And, people are going to say, well, that seems needless. You won by 16. This is the way I sort of look at it. That those points are insurance for if things like get sideways in Gainesville or if things get sideways in Knoxville. Like Americans as a citizenry are tended to be underinsured. We always tend to downplay the risks of things. Don't do that in basketball. If you can run up a 30-point margin, juice the hell out of it.
Yeah.
And, it will make the predictive metrics look better. Yes, it will make your resume metrics look better, all that kind of wonky stuff. But for me, it's like this league is so deep. And from what we've seen with what home teams are doing, they're laying wood on people. They're absolutely cracking people's skulls. I would want as much cushion as I can get when it's available. I want to have as much savings banked up for that as possible. And to not play clean or to get into sub patterns where you wind up with a lineup. And this has happened repeatedly over the last 4 to 5 games. And it happened at Auburn in the middle of the first half. Auburn got traction because Missouri got into lineups where it had 1 or 2 non-actors on offense. The defense for some of that stretch was actually okay, but Missouri was essentially playing 3-on-5 offensively.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. So I just think there's a way for this team to, yes, we can appreciate they got to win. Yes, the 21-game SEC losing streak is over, but you look at that game and you go, they left 13 or 14 points out there. That's another win somewhere for you. That takes the edge off if you go to Knoxville and get handed a 30 burger. You can go, yeah, that's not great, but you know what we did at home? We offset that. Possessions are equal here. So I think that's just my thing. There was an opportunity.
And the folks of Knoxville just went to Gainesville and got handed a 30 burger.
Right.
So it can happen to anybody.
So that's my point here is when you have a chance to run up margin, do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely do it. And don't feel bad about it. And don't come, so that frustrated me more than the Auburn game because it felt like there was an opportunity for Missouri, not even the near term because their KenPom rating would have been capped anyway, probably at 10 or 11 spots. They weren't going to jump from like 53 to 40.
Right.
I'm thinking for the soon to come road trips to Florida and Mississippi State in the next couple of weeks, having a little bit of cushion would have been nice to have. So that's my spiel. That's my thing. If you can run it up, don't hesitate. Be absolutely ruthless. Channel Steve Spurrier. Make him stop you. Just make him stop you. Don't stop.
And I thought there was a couple, several moments in like the first half where it's like things were going really well, and they would just sort of like lose the plot, whether it was subbing somebody out or just not being completely focused on defense. They had several combinations and had several guys that were going well. They were drawing fouls. They were causing all kinds of issues. I thought defensively, I don't really have a whole lot of issue with how they're playing. But yeah, it's just like offensively, they weren't great around the rim.
They played 3 really, really good teams at rim defense recently. Like the Illinois' elite at defending the rim. Auburn's elite at defending the rim. LSU's not elite at much, but they're really good at defending the rim.
Yeah, so. They make it difficult. They do a good job of sort of clogging a lot of the lanes and making it difficult in and around the rim. I think one of the funnier plays for me was Mark Mitchell on the break getting stuffed by Jordan Sears. And they were like making a big deal of it. And like, well, Sears timed his jump beautifully because he was like at the peak of his jump when Mark was about to take off. And it's just like there was nowhere for Mark to go. It's just like, and by that point, like he's this 5'11" dude who's already in the air and he's like as tall as you are. It's like, all right, we're getting swallowed up by a 5'11" point guard. But yeah, I mean, good things. Caleb Grill.
Hit some shots.
I guess, yeah, it's like said hello. It's nice to sort of be reminded of like his value of what he can kind of provide for you. I was really happy with the game that Tamar played. I always kind of wish, when he has those kinds of games, like maybe shoot the ball a couple more times.
Yeah.
And I do really kind of wish that Ant would have been a little better in his mid-range game and maybe hit one or two of those shots. Also, I was surprised because it felt like Warwick played better than he did, or at least shot better than he did, but he was only 4 of 10 from the floor.
I sort of liked that he was exploring the space a little bit more. This brain trust here has been very, very vocal about moving Warwick up in the sub pattern. They got him on first. I think he was one of the first subs in. I think he was the first perimeter sub in. I know Grill was the first one in, and then they brought Warwick in. But he was ahead of Cruz. He was ahead of Allen. And I think that's sort of the thing we've been waiting to see is where you're going to try and get him on, before you'd gotten out of the under 12 timeout in the first half or the under 8 timeout in the first half. Did you give him some runway? And I think, his usage has been so variable from game to game that what I think you really need to do is, and Watkins sent us his skill curve, which is just a wild thing to look at. It's basically like up until 25%, it's elite. And then it's like a sheer freaking rock face that drops after 25%. So you've got to figure out kind of where the sweet spot is for him usage wise, how he's going to sort of fit, among some more prominent lineups. Because the thing about Quez is, and then when I looked at the lineup data last week, his run time with like guys that we would consider key cogs in this rotation has been pretty sporadic. He winds up in a lot of lineups with reserves. So I think you've got to get him into the mix with 3-4 starters. You've got to get him out there for longer stretches. You've got to give him some latitude. Wish that would have happened in early December, but here we are, to figure out, about how much rope he needs, with lineups where there are other quality pieces around him, where he's in the mix earlier, just to figure out kind of what the sweet spot is for his usage and, the types of touches that are going to work for him. So if it took a 4 for 10 night, that's the cost of doing business at this stage in the season to figure out, the optimal way to utilize him in this rotation. So there were some shots where I think maybe they would have trimmed those out of his shot diet earlier in the year. But I think they were like, all right, we gave you a green light. We're going to let you use it and we'll rein you in if we have to. But given how they were trying to integrate him and how his role had kind of shifted last night, I was fine with sort of the shot volume, the shot selection.
Yeah, I don't know that there was anything that like stood out as, like even thinking that the shot wasn't a good shot. It's just, I think in my recollection of kind of as of you're watching the game, I don't really like quite remember it being, as many misses, I think is kind of, what I'm trying to say. Like, I thought he shot the ball better. And then as I was kind of rewatching it, which again, like, synergy is great. And the best part, like being able to like watch a game in like 30 minutes, because you're just like, oh, like this plays over, skip.
Yeah.
Or free throw, skip.
Yep.
It's a great tool, but overall, I mean, I think there's it is kind of important, and I tried to sort of say this much in study hall that it's important to kind of keep in context that, like beating a high major team, whether it's home or on the road by double digits, doesn't happen a lot. For Missouri, they're a program that is, still trying to kind of build something real. You're not quite at the Alabama stage. You're not quite at the Auburn stage. So 16 points against a team that, has other high major players on it and shot the ball well. Like LSU was 40% from 3-point range. That's solid work. So, I think like you, as we were watching the game, we were both pretty kind of frustrated that they couldn't quite push that lead out. It did sort of feel like there was some lack of focus going on at times. But 60-point home win, you move up in KenPom, you move up in net, and you have another opportunity to kind of do the same thing coming up this weekend. Matt, what can you tell us about the Vanderbilt Commodores?
First, we should have purchased way more stock in Vanderbilt in the summer. We were very bullish on this rebuild. I don't know if we were Vanderbilt's going to be on the bubble, bullish. But I liked.
Well, take us back to like the beginning of the season, because like I do like revisiting this because we all three of us looked at what Vandy had like once it was all kind of a settled, like I kind of like these guys a little bit more, but I also think like I don't think I never thought once the conference season was starting that all 16 teams were going to be inside the top 70. I did not think that was going to be a situation that we saw, and there we were. So I thought I thought the expectation was Vanderbilt was probably going to be like a 120s kind of KenPom team. I thought they would probably be more like a 70s or 80s KenPom team.
Yeah, I thought they'd be
and
where
they've
LSU
improved on that.
Right, yeah, they've done really, really. For one, they've absolutely slapped the crap out of people in bye games. They've been better in bye games than Missouri has been, which I think is why they passed Missouri briefly in December. They were absolutely just bludgeoning teams that they paid a lot of money to come to Nashville. They've got, I think the difference between their resume and Missouri's resume is Missouri's got one really, really good win against Kansas. And until last night, it had nothing else in quad 1 or quad 2. No one's going to like go gaga over wins against TCU, Nevada, and LSU. But on balance, LSU is still a quad 1 win because Vandy got that on the road. And then they got the TCU and Nevada games were neutral sites. And those are both quad 2. So they had about the same number of quad 4 games. So they've got a little bit more relative quality, higher on the team sheet. And the loss to Drake on a neutral floor was actually a competitive loss. And Drake's probably going to be a top 80-ish team. So they don't have bad losses. You were just watching before we got on the game against that they played on Tuesday against Mississippi State. And that's probably their first legit top 30, top 20 opponent they faced. And Mississippi State absolutely slapped them midway through the first half and kind of opened up a lead on them. I think they took a 19-3 run and kind of pulled ahead. So Vandy's done what they've needed to do to move up. They're absolutely running up big margins against crappy teams. They're beating good, not great teams on neutral floors. And even the loss to a really, really good team like Texas, like Mississippi State, is not so bad that they get punished in, KenPom's possession-based algorithm. So they've done what you need to do to steadily move up. Now, the question is, what's above that? They don't have wins against anyone better than 60th in KenPom. They've played at about a level between number 60 or 70 against, top 100 teams. So the question that I think you and I might have is, Vandy's been really good. They've exceeded expectations, but are they bumping up against their ceiling now? Now that conference play is here, now that they're going to face top 60 teams every night, which has kind of been where they've started to hit some turbulence, does Vandy start to come back down a little bit? I think they're a fun team. I think we said in the preseason they might be the most fun watch some nights in this league because they're tiny. They play a million freaking miles an hour. They want to turn you over. They have no conscience about like just stripping their offense back and making it all like ball screens and getting downhill and attacking. When they're going, they are an absolute blast to watch. Mm-hmm. But when they're not making shots and they're not able to get back on defense, things can get sideways on them. There are some games, I think the last time I watched Vandy kind of like consistently was probably in late November when they were at the Shriners Classic in Charleston. Even with some games, there would be like 5-minute stretches where you'd be like, they're lucky to have survived this because the possession math got so tilted against them that any momentum they had was gone. But then they just revved the machine back up. So they're a team that I think on Saturday, if you don't like stress, this might not be a game to watch because there are going to be some periods where I think this is going to be pretty frenetic and up and down. And, for us, it might be entertaining, but man, there's going to be some points where you're just going to want to rip your hair out because they're going to go. There's no doubt about that.
A couple things that I would know. I'm a little surprised that they aren't shooting the 3-ball well. I kind of thought that was going to be something that would be a bit of a focus. But, I think we did kind of point out coming into like a lot of the roster construction, they didn't really line themselves up with a bunch of and Matt just lost his earpiece.
I'm back.
They didn't really line themselves up with a lot of like great shooters, but I'm surprised they just haven't, and they don't really like, they don't take a ton of threes.
I think the part of that has to do with kind of how the possessions get distributed, because like Jason Edwards is a perfectly competent 3-point shooter. Like, he shoots 36%, but that guy wants to play off the bounce, wants to drive it, dances a little bit. Hogard's not really a guy who like gets into jumpers when he's playing out of ball screens. He's looking to drive it, or he's looking to feed the roller. And those guys are using 25% plus possessions, when they're on the floor. So they're pumping a lot of offense through guys who I don't think are necessarily true spacers. Devin McLaughlin's kind of more of a roller. So I think it's just kind of how they've constructed their offense there. I think what's interesting to me is, you look at a guy like a Chris Mann, I thought would be a little bit more prominent in the rotation for them.
Mm-hmm.
Big jumbo wing, physical, can kind of slide down and guard fours a little bit. He's been kind of supplanted by Grant Huffman and MJ Collins. So I think and MJ Collins was a guy that, was more of an athlete than a shooter at Virginia Tech. He only shot 28%. So I just think the way that sort of they've evolved with Huffman and Collins kind of moving up in the pecking order has changed the shot composition for them. But like Hoggard, if he gets his feet set in the corner, he's shooting 50%. So I think they've got, and Nickel wants to shoot off the catch. I just think they've got guys who have it more as a specialist than kind of what they do as kind of a focal point.
Yeah, I think that was like coming into the season. I think I made the point in the previews that I thought, Vanderbilt might be smart for them to just go ahead and admit that we're going to be small, we're going to play small, and we're just going to shoot a lot of threes. And they're playing small, but they are not shooting a lot of threes. They are using a lot of Hogard in the pick and roll. They're using Jason Edwards to attack. And they'll shoot their share of 3-pointers, but it isn't in large quantities like I kind of thought might happen. It's gonna be like this is a game. Scrolling back up, so KenPom has this as a 4-point Missouri win. I imagine the line probably will move to about maybe 5.5, probably 6 by the time that they tip. It's a tough matchup. They don't turn the ball over. Missouri is a team that thrives on forcing turnovers.
Both
ball handlers, so you have two teams who don't turn the ball over but force turnovers going against each other, and it's sort of like, okay, like battle of whose will's going to win out. I don't know. It's like this is also like Vanderbilt. They're 1-1 at Missouri. They got South Carolina coming in at home, and then they go on a run that is, quite frankly, pretty brutal.
Nightmarish.
Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, at Oklahoma, Florida. You get a reprieve with Texas, and then Auburn and Tennessee again, and then Kentucky again. So they get Kentucky twice, Tennessee twice, Auburn at home.
Trip to Florida.
Yeah, trip to Florida. Like, Florida hasn't been with, like, I think the opponents haven't been within 18 points of Florida at the what do they call that?
The O-Dome.
The O-Dome.
At the O-Dome, yeah.
Man, like that's. Well, and Missouri gets a trip to Florida as well. So at some point, somebody's gonna play a close game at Florida, surely.
Yeah, surely you hope.
Yeah.
To me, the sneaky factor here might be rebounding. Missouri is still grading out poorly in rebounding, even despite their size. And look at that offensive rebounding number there for Vandy. It's not bad. It's not terrible. So you got to check out if Vandy has you thought they would shoot threes. They are all about attacking the rim. I looked this up. They're 18th in the country for rim attempt volume and 41st for efficiency.
Yeah.
Missouri is 44th in defending the rim. Know what's a good way to really help that? Don't give up putbacks. Don't give up second possessions. So even if you're not turning Vandy over, can you get rebounds? Can you get your wide runners and your bolts out? Can you push off secondary breaks and attack? You can't give Vandy second possessions here. Also because AJ Hoggard is good about relocating to shoot threes off of that. They will quickly reset and put Jason Edwards into a mismatch and a high ball screen, and he will exploit that. So even if they don't get the putback, they're pretty good off resets offensively. So I think if you're Missouri, what you want to do is you want to win confrontations at the rim. You want to collect rebounds. And what you really want is for AJ Hoggard to have to be hitting spot threes. You want them to have to drive and kick to nickel and understand that you can't, get more than one pass away from nickel. And then you just want to, and if Edwards puts the ball on the floor, you want your guard to stay attached to his hip and just walk him down to a big because he doesn't have vertical pop off the floor.
Mm-hmm.
He'll reach into a bag of crazy finishing moves. They're high degree of difficulty, and he's not very good as a rim finisher when he's got to go against a typical big. So that's your thing. Make them into a shooting team, make Edwards have to confront size at the rim, get rebounds, and push off the miss. And then trust your size to win out. I don't know if you want to drive the ball on them necessarily. Missouri shoots the ball a little better than they do, but I think given, Byington will get into his bench, but uses his bench a lot. But really, 5 guys use about 70% of their offense. And 2 of those big guys are Hoggard and Edwards. So I think I'd want to drive early to see if I could do what I did against LSU, which is put those on-ball creators in foul trouble. Make you get into the bench because now you're having to use those ball screens to move Missouri. And you're now relying on nickel hitting jumpers. You're going to be relying on Devin McGlockton doing some jack-of-all-trades stuff as a roller. You're going to be worrying about carry and pick and pops. Like, you're going to make them have to go to some secondary sources of offense. But that starts with closing out possessions. It starts with making them have to work a little bit in the half court. And that might mean Missouri has to give up some pace. So we'll see what they do. Missouri in these games sometimes I think has been willing to throttle the tempo down to make it more of a half court game because I don't think they want to let teams, get traction and turn it into a track meet. So we'll see. It's a game that, I don't think it's going to look great on the team sheet, but you need quad 2 wins. And I think I posted on the forums today. Tiebreakers matter, man. There's like 7 teams that are all kind of packed together. You want to get as many wins as you can against those 7 teams because when March gets here, you want to have as many ways to break ties as possible to improve your seeding position. Beating Vanderbilt at home is one of them. And also, Vanderbilt desperately needs a really good quad 1 win. Missouri's not Mississippi State, but Missouri right now is a quad 1 win for them.
Mm-hmm.
So you hold serve at home, which is critical. You get a tiebreaker, some tiebreaker assistance, and you deny another team that's sitting right there in the early bubble picture with you a quality result. This isn't going to be a game that make or breaks you come March, but it can really, help your case down the line. So I'll be intrigued there. And this is a run of games for Missouri where I think the SEC maybe gifted Missouri in a weird way an ideal schedule. We can talk about that if you want. I think they've got a really sneaky advantageous schedule if they do what they should do or if they do what they can do against it. There's a little bit of a buffer there for them to get off to a good start, or at least a really, really productive start, even if the record is like 4-3. So
Well, yeah, I think like we're not going to spend a whole lot of time kind of talking about the future of the schedule. We'll have plenty of time to kind of preview that.
Yeah.
But another reason why you want to try to make sure you're securing a win against Vanderbilt, is because the next game that you have is 13% chance to win at Florida.
Yep.
Florida, they're currently 5th in the country. That's a Tuesday night game. Like, that's a really difficult place to play. Missouri's won one time at Florida. That was the NCAA year under Conzo Martin. A lot of people might remember Drew Smith's game winner. With a half empty building, because of COVID. So like we've watched plenty of like bad nights at the O-Dome in Gainesville. So that's not really like a game where you can expect Missouri to go down there and win. I think similar to Auburn, you don't want to be like, we're going to go in intimidated. I think they have a team that can compete with Florida and on a good night, maybe pull out a win. That's your 13% chance, right?
Yeah.
So like, again, like you're not scared to go play Florida. The odds are you're not going to win that game. So you want to be 2-2. And like, again, like, kind of talking about like those late possessions against LSU, you're talking about why you want to hold serve against Vanderbilt is because you're going to have a really hard time winning on the road. And you want to really maximize your opportunities at home. And this is one of the best opportunities you have remaining at home. I want to say like they get South Carolina at home. So that's probably their best win percentage. And then after that, Vandy 65%.
Arkansas 63.
Yeah. So Vandy 65%. That is updated, I believe, because Arkansas lost at home, so they're down to 48. Missouri is 45.
Brought behind Missouri. It's going well down there with that Tyson money. It's going well.
So that's kind of where you're at. Is you beat Vanderbilt, you're 2-1. You go to Florida, you deal with that, but then you get Arkansas at home, and you should be able to get on the right side no matter what happens against Florida. If you go down there and you can pull off the win at Florida, then you're, again, like this is kind of what I was saying against Auburn. You're sending a shot across the bow to the rest of the SEC that you're ready to make a move. But then don't come home and lose to Arkansas.
That run of Arkansas, this run of Vanderbilt, Arkansas, Texas, and Ole Miss, and for the next 5 are all teams that are kind of in that Gordian knot of 7 teams probably fighting for 5 spots on the bubble. And you get 3 of those games at home after getting a winnable game against LSU. Your hope is that you're coming out of that stretch at 4-3. And, if you could flip the road game at Texas, which Texas has looked vulnerable. They have not looked good against top 100 teams this year. That's your goal right there is 4-3, 5-2.
They look pretty good last 5 minutes against Auburn.
What if that's Auburn's thing? They're just like, we're checking out. We've done our job for 30 minutes. We're going to rest. We got to save this up.
Hey, that didn't happen in any other game this year.
Didn't happen in any other game. But no, I think that's the point. So like Vanderbilt's one of those runs now where it was good to get the win over LSU and do what you need to do. But now these 4 of these next 5 to me are the games that if you aspire to like push your way up to like 6th or 7th in the standings as opposed to lingering around 9th or 10th, you get results in these games. And if you can somehow get to 5 wins here, it's great looking at the other 11 games in the SEC and going, man, we've only got to go 4-7 the rest of the way to probably get a bid. So like this is the time now where if you're looking to bank again, if you're going to bank a little bit of savings or you're looking to have a little bit of extra coverage, the folks in Birmingham gave you a relatively friendly start to conference play.
Yeah.
Take advantage of it. Take advantage of it. Position yourself well. And if you can go on the road to Mississippi State and get a win, found money. If you can go steal a win at Knoxville, found money. But go 5-2 or 4-3 and position yourself well. That's the operative goal right now.
Well, I think that's all we've got. Anything else that you got stuck in your craw you want to get out?
No, I just want some road teams to be competitive in this league. I think that was we got all primed up for like this is the best opening weekend in SEC basketball history, and then just a lot of teams got seal clubbed for 40 minutes.
Even like beyond that, like the first game,
was a banger.
Florida Kentucky game was phenomenal, like just a great game, and then everybody else like was just like, no, we're. I want to say, okay, you're gonna make me look this up. There were only 2-3 games that were within 10 points.
Yeah.
Saturday, the SEC. Arkansas got blasted by Tennessee. Missouri got blasted by Auburn. Oklahoma got blasted by Alabama. Florida, Kentucky was close. Texas got blasted by Texas A&M. South Carolina got blasted by Mississippi State. Georgia didn't play great at Ole Miss. They lost by 12, and LSU Vandy was an 8-point game. So yeah.
But in the Ole Miss game, UGA game and the Vandy LSU game, there were some big first half margins that kind of cushioned in both of those. So there was some cosmetic work in those other two. But no, I'm looking at the standings right now, and we've got these are the teams that are 1-1: Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Missouri, Vanderbilt. A lot of teams in there. We've got these are your 0-2 teams: Texas, Arkansas, LSU, and South Carolina. I mean,
Oklahoma's up by 9 at halftime against Texas A&M.
Ooh, some intrigue there. This is my other bailiwick. Is this? What did we say in the preseason? We didn't understand why people were putting Texas and Arkansas so much farther ahead of Missouri. If you looked at actual talent accumulation, the rosters were very similar. They were. And sure enough, Texas 39, Missouri 45, Arkansas 48 in KenPom. Meanwhile, everyone underrating Vanderbilt, even though the coach they had a new coach. Like that was the one that killed me the most was everybody associated with that terrible season is gone. They're all gone. It means nothing.
Hey, Jaquelin Roberts came back.
They needed him too. What are they? They have 3 bigs? They've got McLaughlin, Jalen Carey, and Jaquelin.
Those are the 3. I don't think he's really playing.
He's like deep bench. It's either McLaughlin or Carey that are their 5s. But McLaughlin gets a little bit of run. He gets some spot minutes, but they need him because they don't have any other bigs. They don't have anybody else that's a legitimate interior player.
Roberts has not played against SEC competition.
Oh, man. Give Roberts some run, baby. He might need it on Saturday.
JQ.
He might get it on Saturday.
Well, actually, I think Jordan Williams was on the roster last year. That was the dude who was a redshirt at Texas A&M. So they had 2 guys, and neither are playing.
So teams, though, that I feel like I have to give credit towards. I was skeptical of Mississippi State. Proved me wrong. I was skeptical that Florida had another gear. Wrong there. I won't say I was wrong about Georgia. Georgia was probably the hardest team for me to figure all offseason. Like, thought they had some really nice front court pieces. Liked what their freshmen showed. I just didn't know if I could trust Mike White to get anything out of it.
Well, and he imported like a bunch of like more kind of like low major guys. Like there weren't really like the guys who might give them a scoring pop weren't coming from high majors.
Ace Newell's been awesome. Ace Newell's been freaking awesome.
Yeah, Ace Newell's been really good, and you know, like they the Deshane Montgomery has turned into a much better player. You know, like a guy probably didn't think much as he was coming in, but you know, like it's. I think with a lot of these sort of low to mid major, you know, to high major transfers, some guys are going to hit, some guys aren't, and you know, it is a really tough, you know, evaluation game, and some coaches are better at it, some aren't. I'm not saying Mike White is great at it. I'm saying at the very least, he got that one right.
But you know, I think the one thing I would sort of point out is if you look at the teams that are in the top here, top of the conference, Auburn, what did they do? Heavy retention and continuity. What did Alabama do? Retention and continuity. What did Florida do?
Continuity.
Retention and continuity. Despite what Kevin Sweeney wrote this week, what did Tennessee do in mostly? A lot of continuity.
Continuity, yeah.
So again,
I didn't see what Sweeney wrote. So
he basically wrote that Lanier like headlined this massive portal class for Tennessee. Oh, A&M. A&M is 14th. What has A&M done?
Ran it back.
It's right there for people. Like that's what it's right there.
The leading scorer for Texas A&M at halftime in Oklahoma, Hayden Hefner.
Get you some former walk-on.
I'm just gonna say, like, if
just
Hayden
have him
Hefner,
and Luke Northweather play 1-on-1 and see who wins.
If Hayden Hefner is your leading scorer, like that's not a good sign. Texas A&M.
That's probably ominous for your fortunes if Hayden Hefner's dragging your offense along.
And A&M's slight defense, like Wade Taylor is out for the game.
Yeah,
but Zurich Phelps, Manny Obaseki, like what are we doing?
This is the only continuity one I can. Well, no, South Carolina took a big hit. It brought guys back, but it lost all its stars. So, again, this is my bailiwick every episode, every chance I get. Retention, continuity, development. Find guys you like out of high school. Sign them. Develop them. Build a stable core. Use your NIL to retain them. And then only have 2 to 3 spots you need to fill each spring. Usually only one of those should probably be a starter level player. The other 2 should be specialists to fill particular needs in your rotation. There's 15 years of history showing that teams that make the Elite 8 or higher are usually top 110 in experience and continuity. It's right there. The portal has tempted you all to stray away from proven methods. You can pay the players now. You can pay them to stay. You can pay them to stay. So just that's my lesson before I get out of here. Retention, continuity, development.
That's all we've got. We're still figuring out the schedule. I'm trying to get us back on Mondays. We'll see if I'm able to kind of do that here at some point. Stick around on the podcast feed if you like these Mizzou podcasts. Before the Box Score, believe is taking a little hiatus postseason. They'll be back. Majority Rules will have a new episode. I believe they're actually recording tonight. And then if you aren't subscribed to Rock M Plus, please get subscribed because Matt Watkins has got plans for more verdicts coming soon. And the video stuff on the verdict is actually really cool. So I would encourage any Mizzou basketball fan, if you're listening to this now, come check out Rock M Plus. We've got the subscription stuff all worked out, Matt. I'm super excited. I've been working behind the scenes to get this right. It's right. I can't wait to be a little more hands off on the behind the scenes stuff. I'm a little tired, but it's getting there. It's getting there, and we're very excited about all the potential.
We need you back in the salt mines making content. back in the
Yeah,
70s.
like actually writing things. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back maybe next week. Like I said, we're gonna try and figure out the schedule, but we'll keep you posted. You can follow him on Twitter. You can follow me on Blue Sky. I think you're on Blue Sky too, but I'm strictly on Blue Sky now. Good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Bon voyage.